it's on everyone's mind right now. And of course, we just went through it over this last year, but the best ways to reach our flock during a lockdown, when all of a sudden you can't reach people. So the normal ways anyways. So the printed bulletin only works if people are showing up. And of course, only a small percentage of parishioners were probably reading it regularly anyways. Social media and the sort of dedicated mobile apps and all that, even though you're like, this is digital, this is great, they actually end up falling really dramatically short as well, because a majority of our members aren't going there. So again, I think a lot of churches saw people flock to social media, quickly right after. It was the only way they could find their church or get the message. But we're seeing that sort of trend back to it's really just your most engaged people are going to engage you on social media. They're going to download your app. They're going to do all those kinds of things. So again, those channels reach what we call the 7%. If you don't know what that means, go back and watch our last episode where we explore the 7% and the 82%. But that's about it. And so a lot of, again, after the first few weeks, during the first few weeks, you had a lot of members that were probably more willing to go out of their way to get in touch with you, to go to your website, see what's going on. But that's all kind of died down now, and now we're back to this weird purgatory where we've tried to come back a little bit. We still have lots of restrictions. It depends on where you live, of course. But we're realizing that there's huge portions of our members. Again, this is mostly the 82%. Are not responding. They're not coming back. And so what are the best ways? And I hope this lesson was learned throughout the lockdown by all churches, but what are the best ways to reach people when it really counts, when we really need to, when not just when a crisis hits, that's important, not just when there's bad weather and a schedule change last minute, those are all really important too, and those all apply here, but also like now, when you're trying to reach people and they can't show up, or they're not showing up, or they've gotten very disengaged and they're not going out of their way to try to re-engage in your community.
Yeah, I mean it's been super remarkable. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's made our job a lot easier because I mean, for 10 years, Flocknote's been making basically the same case that the bulletin doesn't cut it, social media doesn't cut it, because one, the bulletin is just a sheet of paper. A lot of times, it's not done well. It has a 0% open rate if people don't show up, and then social media. We're seeing the same thing even more now. Not only are people leaving in droves now, but already it was there was a middleman. There was a Mark Zuckerberg throttling how much traffic you could see without spending money on advertising. But yeah, I think it's really remarkable how when people weren't able to sit in front of them, so many churches were like, well, shoot, how do I get how do I get a message to them now? And so I mean, praise God. I mean that people were able to find out that way that it was email and text, but still, for some reason, that's the case where it's just not kind of clicking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. We have to be smart, right, as church.
Well, I think it was something that churches couldn't ignore anymore once everyone was at home, because you could pre-COVID, you could send out your same communications, you get some responses. Again, it's usually that same group of most engaged people, but you can kind of pretend that it's all working because you still had a lot of people showing up on Sundays. You still had, it was normal, it was business as usual. And it's a slow shift, but of course there's 6 leaving the church for every one that's joining, in general. And this is a mass cultural shift that the United States and the world is going through. And so we don't always see the big shift because it's kind of slow normally. And so we can do our normal communications. We can put stuff in the bulletin. We can put it on the website. We can post it on a social media page. We can, whatever. And life keeps going, and we're okay. And it works for some things, and it works, not so well for a lot of other things. But it keeps going, and it's just normal. But when all this hit, and now everyone's at home, and we're like, wait, we need you guys. You can start coming back now, or hey, we need you to help support us, or hey, let's engage each other in a new way because we can't meet together in person right now for whatever reason. And you all of a sudden realize that there's hardly anybody responding back, that a majority of your community is not that engaged. And it was something we kind of sensed for a while, but that it wasn't, we couldn't ignore it anymore whenever all these lockdowns hit. And so Yeah, like Matt said, we have we've had incredible. I mean, Flocknote has been a unique place to view all of this from, because we've been offering this solution and trying to teach churches this over time, and many have learned this lesson, and they were the ones that when COVID hit, like, they were ready. They could reach their people directly. They could reach them without a middleman. They could reach the people who are not going to go out of their way to come get information and talk to them, because they had learned how effective email and text messaging is. But this just sort of really highlighted, I think, a lot of the things we've been hoping to teach churches for a long time. And so we hope now that it is a lesson that everybody can kind of grasp on to and go, okay, yeah, we weren't really that prepared. And I mean, we saw this because, like, the 2 months after COVID hit, Flocknote grew as much in those 2 months as we grew in our whole first 5 years we existed. And it was incredible, but it was because we were able to help people directly reach their members when they needed to. And so you already brought up a couple of these points, Matt, but I just want to highlight them real quick, because when it comes to why there's lots of reasons these channels work really well and they're ideal, but they should be the backbone of a church's communication structure for a couple of reasons. So one is they're direct. They directly reach the people. It pushes to a person where they're already, getting most of their direct push information, which is in their text inbox or their email inbox. Now, they do consume a lot on social media and other places like that, but the problem is the second point is that email and texting are independent. They're platform independent. So like you said, Matt, on Facebook now, you can get all these people to like you on your Facebook page, but you can only reach a very small percentage of them without paying for it often, because they've basically made it harder for it to show up in someone's feed unless you happen to be paying them money for it. We've seen additional things come in, of course, with all of the censorship and other issues lately. Whether it's justified or not in certain situations, certainly it is sometimes, but there are definitely a lot of these big tech companies and app stores and whatever that would consider, basic church teaching hate speech, something that is not allowed. And so when these kind of things happen, when there is risk of those kind of things happening, you need to be able to reach your people directly. And if you have an email address and you have a cell phone number, you can take that information and use it in so many different platforms to be able to reach those people directly when you need to. So not only do they reach more people than any other channels will, but they have this kind of independence to them that is a very reliable backbone for your church to depend on. It's something everybody can use and participate in. And then what you need, of course, is something simple to be able to help all your ministry leaders use those channels and organize all those contacts and keep them segmented like they're supposed to be segmented. And that's what Flocknote is, but you could use other tools as well. But the point here is email and texting should be, if they're not already after all this, we need to start now. That needs to be the primary way that we build our communication channels at any church community.